Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back to Monday Night Mythbusters. And we are back in action now that we're back from all of our traveling with some top tips. Our 10 healthy travel tips to stay fit and energized while traveling this summer.
Yes, welcome guys. We've missed you. We've been excited to get back in the groove here.
Right, exactly. So I'm back with Leslie Harrington, top number one transformational health coach. I always with that word transformational, maybe when I'm 100. And then myself, Dr. Carolyn George. So thank you guys for showing up. If we can have anybody that's watching right now, if you want to just send us any questions that you've got, any experiences that you might have had that you want to share for ways that you have found to be helpful to make sure that you're traveling and staying healthy. Okay, and we're going to start going through a little bit of our list here. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Sal.
Great to have you back.
Share us.
Yeah, exactly. So summer is that time when a lot of people do their traveling. Kids are now out of school, and so there's family vacations. Work schedules tend to be a little less intense depending on what type of work you do, and so there's a lot of vacations and traveling that happen over the summer, even if not for vacation, sometimes for work too. So it's a common time. Hi there, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
It's a common time to be traveling, and we want to stay healthy, right? We want to make sure that when we're doing whatever we're doing, that we're not coughing and sneezing and feeling lousy. We've spent a lot of money to do whatever we're doing, and so we'd like to enjoy it.
I see a lot of people that come in and they're like, I just went on my trip and I blew it, and they come back like they have to start all over, and it doesn't have to be like that. So it's kind of like figuring out how to plan appropriately and letting you still go and have fun and enjoy your vacation without feeling like you have to change everything that you're doing, to contribute to your health while you're on the road.
Right, exactly. So,
hi, Marianne.
So not only can you stay healthy and not get colds and pneumonia and stuff like that, but you can continue to do your healthy activities that you do at home differently, of course, but you can still eat healthy, exercise healthy, and do your stress management techniques while you're traveling. It's an opportune time, because sometimes you actually have a little bit more time for those things because you're not trying to fit in an 8-hour workday.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And you also, when you go planning ahead, you kind of almost make sometimes better choices than you would even eating out at home, because you don't plan ahead as much.
Right.
So there's ways that you can actually go away and do better on some of your nutrition, because you might not have as much of your snacks that you go to and grab and maybe mindlessly eating. Everything's a little more planned and structured, and you're arranging for what you're going to do.
Right. So we're going to start off with a few things, but the number one thing, by and large, that will help keep you healthy and help keep you on track is to drink water, lots of it. The plane dehydrates you. You're going to be fuller. You're not going to eat as much if you're drinking water, and your body needs plenty of water to help fight off infections. And you're going to be exposed to lots of germs if you're flying, you're on a train, you're on a bus, however it is that you're traveling. You're certainly going to be exposed to more than if you're in an office, right?
Yeah, and you want to consider like 5 times the amount that you normally would drink, because the plane it's very significantly dehydrating.
Very dehydrating.
Plus the amount of time that you might be on it, depending on where you're going, and then when you land. So you want to hydrate before you get on the plane, hydrate while you're on the plane, even though I know it's disgusting to have to go to the bathroom and you don't want to climb over people. It's worth it. You stand, you prop yourself up, you do what you got to do. But drinking on the plane is absolutely critical. I always make sure that I have, yes, water, specifically water. And then we can go into quality of water too. So, you want to be looking for that optimal water, which the airports here, I think the best one I've possibly found has been the Fiji. Is it Fiji that's BPA free?
Okay, yeah.
And they have the bigger, they're not at every store, that you have to find them in a Starbucks and stuff like that. So,
So number one thing, obviously don't bring water through security, but plan to have a lot of water. If you can, bring your metal container so that you can take any bottled water you get and dump it into your metal container, and then it's one less thing that you have to worry about in terms of BPA and the chemicals and stuff, and you've got a nice handy dandy little container. So number one, water, okay? Lots of it.
And then, like I said, on the tail end of the flight and then landing, when you get to where you're going, make sure you have plenty of water on hand in your hotel, and then as well whenever you're going out to eat, things like
right. And depending where you're traveling, clean water becomes an issue, and obviously that's a whole different conversation. But if you're going someplace that's third worldish, you don't want to drink their tap water, you don't want to have their ice cubes, you don't want to brush your teeth with their water, so you would always need to make sure you've got a safe source of water.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey there, Blair. Welcome.
Hi, Blair.
Good to see you. Or hear you, or see your
name.
See your name, exactly. So number 2. So this is a trick that Leslie uses, and I think it's a great one, is to have a refrigerator in your room. And so I always try to make sure that my hotel will have a refrigerator. Usually if they don't anyways, I'll put one in for you. You do have to be careful. Sometimes if they have it stocked already with things, any change in the weight, they sometimes will charge you. So it's ideal if it's not one of those pre-stocked ones, that it's just a fridge. And why don't you tell them your little
so there's
trick?
tricks around that too. So you can actually manipulate some of the bottles and let them know. It's really, the magnet will trigger a billing thing, but if the actual bottle's there and put there, but you have to let them know. Yeah. The other thing is calling ahead. Make sure you ask for it ahead of time, because then when you get there, you can say, I requested a fridge, and you maybe have a 50-50 shot that you actually got one. But if not, when you get there, a lot of times they will go out of your way to deliver one to your room. There is a little trick. It's a little fib for me anyway, and some people it might not be, but asking for a refrigerator for either medical reasons or for being a diabetic or things that, people have to have a refrigerator for, you're not going to get the same argument, and you probably won't get charged.
Right. Or if you have children, you have to keep bottles cold, that type of thing. You can give them plenty of reasons, and they will usually, sometimes they'll charge you, but usually they'll give it to you for free.
Yeah, and the purpose of the refrigerator, obviously, is so that you can research ahead of time the local grocery stores. You can land and, Google Whole Foods, and maybe your Uber driver can swing you by, or you can, if you have a rental car, and then getting yourself some snacks that are going to be ideal to have around. So if you are getting hungry, you're not going to the vending machine, you're not going to the downstairs, snacks by the check-in.
Right.
You're going to have your carrots or your hummus. You can have hard-boiled eggs are great for breakfast. I get hard-boiled eggs and avocado, and have a nice protein and fat-dense breakfast. So really, really key for me, the refrigerator is like, I celebrate. I'm like, yes, and like, it's just such a...
Gotta have it.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. And it can also be used so that if you purchase something, you go out for dinner, for example, you don't have to eat it all and feel like you're wasting it.
Yes.
You can save some of that, put it in the fridge, and that's lunch for the next day if you want. So it saves money, as well as allows you to have the freedom to have some of the foods that you would like to eat that are a little healthier than what might be available in the hotel store or nearby.
And I do, when I go to the grocery store, I always get a big pack of water. I have like this thing about spending $7 on a bottle of water when you could get, a 6-pack or 12, whatever days you're there,
the same amount of money.
And just continually restock, if you want them cold or warm or whatever. But making sure that you have adequate water supply constantly, so that there are times if you're woken up in the middle of the night and been like, oh, I've gone to the fridge and my water's been frozen because the fridge was too cold, and then you're like parched, and you're not going to drink out of the sink, right? So definitely stocking on water again.
Yes. And so I mentioned restaurants and taking some food home from restaurants. So that's another thing that you can look up before you go and find out, or even while you're there, look to see what local restaurants are serving the type of food you want to eat. If you are gluten-free, dairy-free, you can find places with those kinds of foods. If you're vegetarian, you can find places with those kinds of food. If you're more keto or paleo, you can find restaurants in all the major cities that will cater to what your particular nutritional issues are. It's smaller and smaller cities, so you might have to do more planning. You might have to call and ask if they can adjust their recipes or whatever to whatever your needs are.
And almost everyone's menu's online now, so you can really plan ahead for, and I even suggest at home. A lot of my clients will say, I'm going to this restaurant, I'm not sure what I should choose, and I can just jump online and look at the menu and be like, okay, ask for this, and this, and ask the waiter to help you through that. But definitely looking at the menu ahead of time.
Makes a big difference. And it really is more available than you might think to speak with somebody in the kitchen, not necessarily the chef, but to see if they can accommodate whatever your allergies or food sensitivities or dietary preferences happen to be. So really looking at the restaurants is very useful. The other thing that we thought was really an important thing to do is after you're flying, flying itself can be very stressful and you're away from the ground, and it's just good to ground yourself. And so that means to kind of go out barefooted onto the grass, onto the dirt or concrete or in some water, and just connect with the earth again. That it may sound silly, but it really tends to make people feel better, and it really helps to kind of absorb some of the negative energy that can be associated with some traveling.
Yeah, and if you're switching time zones, it's critical to get your circadian rhythm kind of reset.
Switch it around, yeah.
The other thing is there anybody here who's familiar with earthing or grounding? They call it. They kind of use
Give
those
us a
terms.
thumbs up if anybody's heard of that.
Yeah, so like it does sound
okay.
silly. You do the you just take your shoes off, and it's like amazing the impact, because I don't even walk barefoot around here unless I intentionally do it,
Oh yeah, I'm barefoot all the time.
Yeah, like, and that's partly because I have dogs in my backyard and whatever, and I keep the yard clean, but it's really something that we should be intentionally doing here and everywhere. But specifically when you're traveling, it does help reset. It helps you acclimate to wherever you're going. Specifically, West Coast travel would be really good for.
Yeah, just getting reconnected to the earth is a key thing when you're traveling. And you don't even have to be flying. You could be driving in a car. You could be on a bus, train, however it is you like to travel. But just getting back and connected to the ground is very useful. Then another thing, just to think about when you're flying, before we leave the flying piece, it's really helpful to have a higher protein diet. So try to avoid all those simple carbs, all the breads, that everybody wants to give you, all the sandwiches and things
Snacks
like that.
and stuff.
Trying to decrease the carbs, increase your proteins will help you to acclimate to any time changes a little bit better, and staying hydrated is also obviously very key.
Yeah.
Now, one of the tricks that I use, and we both have different travel techniques, so we're going to throw out things that we both use as well as things that we've read and researched. But one of the things I do to try and not gain weight while I'm traveling is, because it's very easy, you've got these beautiful big meals that you pay a lot of money for and you don't want to waste them. So I tend to stick to 2 meals a day. So I'll have a later brunch, so to speak, maybe around 10:30 or 11, and then I'll eat around 6:30, 7, something like that. So I'm having 2 major meals, generally not a lot in between. And then I've got some extra calories if I want that glass of wine or two. Then I've got some calories saved up if there is a dessert that looks extra special, that I want to try, and something maybe unique to the area. Then I've got some extra calories to play with, and that way I'm not paying the devil when I get back and trying to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah, and then you've got a little bit of that fasting period in the morning too, to free up some of your body's normal recovery.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm usually so busy when I'm traveling. I'm trying to see museums or, do an activity or something, that I really don't want to spend 2 extra hours trying to get a lunch and sitting down at a restaurant and, spending that time eating when I can be doing.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
I like to do that. And Blair makes the comment that grounding is even more important after prolonged ocean travel. Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah, anytime that your feet are not really connected to our earth for a prolonged period of time, it's really a useful technique. So any kind of traveling.
I actually have an earthing sheet.
Yes.
I would bring it's a half sheet, so you don't make the whole bed with it, but it's like enough for one person. And when I would travel, I'd bring my earthing sheet, and you plug it into an outlet, and you can test whether or not it's actually grabbing the conductivity of outside, because some outlets won't do it. And I would take it on my West Coast stuff, and I'd bring it with me to the hotel, and I'd sleep with it for a few days. It's actually a good for pain. Earthing's good for other things than just this. So if you were to research it, you'd find other reasons why they have sheets and mats and things like that. But yeah.
So another great little travel tip. So one of the other things that we wanted to touch base on with traveling is that sometimes you actually get a better sleep, not a worse sleep. So if you can give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, who gets a better sleep when you travel and who gets a worse sleep when you travel? Who hates hotel beds and who loves their sleep when they're away? So if we can get kind of a little response, that would be helpful. So one of the things that we've found is that a lot of thumbs up and a few down. So hotel rooms tend to be very dark. You have the blackout curtains. So often you get a better sleep because it's darker and you're not having an alarm to wake you up. You don't have a job you have to get up and go to. So you have a little bit of freedom with your wake up time and a little bit less stress. So a lot of people are less stressed when they're traveling.
Yeah, and I think, the pitch black, ideally we have these blackout shades in our home, and our sleep sanctuary that we've talked about when we did the sleep segment. But any amount of light that's peeping through, even on your TVs, they actually make little round like Band-Aid-like things to cover the lights, the blue light that shines from your TVs. Mm-hmm. Even the alarm clocks, things like that are like illuminating the entire room. Those are forms of different types of light exposure. So when you're in these hotel rooms, like you're really kind of blacking things out. Some people sleep much more soundly. The other thing is we tend to freeze it out in there, right? Like at home, sometimes we're a little more not as cautious where it's a much bigger space that's getting cool. When I'm in hotels, I'm always like ice cold. I kind of make things super cold. Okay. And that is something that's critical for good sleep anyway, is to lower the temperature between 62 to 68 degrees. So crank the air, pull your shades, cover up your alarm clock, with one of those extra 10 pillows they give you, and just, go in there like a cave.
And sleep in and get some good sleep so that you've got the energy to do whatever activities you've got planned for the next day. That's key. So we also wanted to try to touch on some other things that we do around flying. So I tend to use some immune boosters when I'm flying. I think, Leslie, you do too?
Yeah, I do the medicinal mushrooms and sometimes just straight up vitamin C, zinc, a couple different ones that I wouldn't normally use every day. And the key for me is to do it a day or two before, during my trip, and then when I get back for a day, and then usually that covers me. But my body's not used to having it all the time, so it literally gives me a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, and I also use some boost with some zinc and some vitamin C. There's a specific supplement that I really like to use, again, for a few days before, while I'm traveling usually, and then maybe a day or two after. And just once a day usually, unless I feel like I'm fighting something off. And then that helps me to travel. Like this last month, I've been traveling all over the place, and I haven't been sick at all. So, and I've been on, I think about 10, maybe, actually no more than that, probably about 16 planes in the last month. Yes, I've been traveling a lot. And thus we didn't have the Facebook Lives. So no colds, nothing. I haven't even had a sore throat. It's been very useful. So these are some good tricks.
Michelle asked about airborne. So airborne's primarily, I think, a high dose of vitamin C. The only thing I don't love about it is there's quite a bit of sugar.
A lot of sugar, but it does have a little bit of zinc, and so that can be useful too. Yeah. There's some zinc tablets that you can get. Yeah. What is the one that you use? You use chlorophyll.
A spray.
Okay. Use a spray.
The zinc I use a spray. I use chlorophyll drops, especially for West Coast travel. It helps with some jet lag. It helps with changes in altitude, and it helps with headaches. So whenever I get off the plane, I'll do my chlorophyll, and careful it will stain. But it always kind of, it's almost like Claritin Clear. Like you just get like this where you were feeling a little bit hazy and groggy from the plane, and it just kind of just gives you a little bit of a boost.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, airborne can be used for sure, and there's lots of other varieties of things, but just trying to have your own little package so that you kind of got a set routine. But zinc is really important for the immune system, so you may want a little bit more zinc than is in the airborne. Another thing that we do, both of us, when we travel, is we carry wipes, and we wipe off our seat. And yeah, we do look kind of like a grandma when we're doing that. I get some looks, but I will wipe off the armrest, the belt buckle, the seat, and I'll close my air because I don't like that recirculated air flowing right on me. I am still going to breathe it anyways, but I don't like it blowing right into my face.
I'm like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but wiping and you know, just the amount of germs that are on those different, but your tray table and your seatbelt and the back, like you'd be surprised at how much that can do.
It can be huge because if you think about it, these airlines, the planes are holding between 200 and 400 people, depending on what kind of plane you're riding on. But they're not able to go over and wipe off everything in between flights. If they can get the trash out of there and get you some fresh toilet paper in the bathrooms, you're doing really good. So it's really up to us to kind of make sure that our own little area, our own little space is clean for us. Because there's been people, you know, there'll be kids with snotty noses, there'll be adults that are coughing, there'll be people that fly with the flu. And I can tell you from working in the urgent care, people still fly even when they know they have the flu because they paid for the ticket and they have to be somewhere. So they expose hundreds of people whenever they do that, and it happens with regularity. Yeah. So just those are some little tricks that we
Michelle asked about the chlorophyll drops. The chlorophyll drops I get at Whole Foods. They sell them. They have a peppermint flavor. Otherwise, it's just kind of a neutral, tasteless. Maybe a little bit of green if you don't do enough water.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's it's a blood cell booster or red blood cell booster.
Yeah, chlorophyll is the equivalent to our little mitochondria from plants, and so that chlorophyll is what plants can take this energy of the sun and make plant material from. We don't have that ability, so sometimes we can benefit by taking a little bit of it.
Yeah, it's what makes the leaves green.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So a couple other tricks that we note. So many people get constipated when they travel, whether it's by plane, car, train, whatever they're doing, they tend to get constipated. Unless maybe you're doing a bike trip. If you're doing your own bicycling, you probably not as much because you're doing a lot of activity, getting those bowels working. But preventing that constipation is key because if you get bunged up when you're traveling, it's not so fun.
Yeah, and the other thing is just activity in general. So planning ahead, again, if you're going on vacation, you may have an activity plan, but trying to integrate some sort of exercise and movement, sometimes just getting off the plane and getting going a little bit is going to help you to feel good. But there's tons, like, you know, look at activities that are conducive to the area that you're going. Some people,
something that's unique to that area.
Yeah, get it kind of, you can combine some of the sightseeing and the cultural things that you're there for. And then on the flip side, if you're on a business trip and you just need to go hit up a local gym, you can also Google certain gyms. You know, I do the Orange Theory Fitness stuff. They have them all over every city. So every time I go out, I just literally put it in my maps, and there's always one within a few miles that you can Uber to, or you can go into the hotel gym. You know, whatever you need to do to get some activity in your regular exercise in is going to make a big difference, even if you have to do a little bit of body movement in your room.
Right. Oh, yeah. And you can even just put a towel on the floor and do some yoga. If you don't have your yoga mat with you, you can just do some stretching. Yeah. You can go down to the hotel pool or the workout room and get some movement in. Or you can walk someplace, right? Novel thought, right? Just getting out there and walking and exploring whatever new place that you're in is really key. But trying to find something that's unique to that area. If it's a mountain, maybe you go hiking. If it's a flat place, maybe you just go for a bike ride. But really trying to bring something that's specific to that area, you'll remember it even more. Instead of just, doing only museums and other more sedentary things. And even museums actually can include a lot of walking if you take the stairs from floor to floor rather than elevators. Sure. I mean, there's all kinds of little ways to bring movement in.
One of the other things I do, especially on night flights or, times when you're in, just times you would normally either be sleeping or doing something else, is I do the orange, the blue light blocking sunglasses. And you can wear them in the airport. You don't look too much like a clown if they're not the ones that are like very construction looking. But the blue light blockers are really big to have while you're on the plane. And you can do like binaural beats. You can do your heart rate variability training while you're sitting on the plane.
Especially for night flights.
Yes. Yeah. And really taking the time that you're on the plane and make it a productive time. Listen to a podcast, read an audiobook, read a book. good old-fashioned reading. Write, journal, meditate. Like, there's so many things that you can do while you're on the plane. How often do you get several hours of kind of like downtime, if you will? So use that time on the plane to do something very like personal growth, really take advantage of it.
Write plans that you've always wanted to kind of think about, or even just go through your emails and start deleting, right? Get rid of some of that stuff. There can be lots of things that can be done. And of course there's always movies. If you just want to hang out, you can watch a movie. But I tend to like to get things done. So I like to really make my plane time useful. You get frustrated sometimes because my last few flights, the internet wasn't working, or they didn't have internet on the plane. Like, what planes don't have internet anymore? So sometimes you can set yourself up, but I always have a book to read. So I always have something so that if all else fails with technology, I've always got a book. And usually, I've always got 20 on my bedside table, but I'll bring one along that's not too heavy. Don't take a hardcover. So something smaller, lighter, so you're not carrying 10 pounds in your backpack or your purse.
Which is a good point. And the other thing is blood flow. Like, so really, as often as you can physically get up on an airplane, you want to stand, walk, move, sit. Sometimes it's just as simple as standing and getting up. So changing of positions is really critical. And especially with dehydration and blood flow, taking your feet and just doing this while they're under, try to extend them.
Or you do little circles.
Move. Yeah, you want to kind of get your feet going so that the blood flow. I actually wear, I call them my geriatric socks. I wear compression socks.
I wear compression socks too.
And it really helps the blood flow. And when you land and stuff, you're not as swollen. And, it's just, you don't get that yucky, inflamed flight feeling.
My legs would get puffy when I would fly. So they don't with compression socks. And I'm wearing generally pants anyways because I, want to make sure my body's covered in the plane. Do I sound like I'm a little obsessive compulsive about this?
You're not going to wear your Daisy Dukes.
No, I wouldn't be doing that. So compression socks are awesome because DVTs, deep venous thrombosis, or blood clots in your legs, are a very big risk factor for when you're flying. So that is definitely important. If you get that, you're not going to be healthy. You're going to be in big trouble. So if you notice when you're flying, just as an aside, that one leg is painful and swollen and the other one's not, it doesn't have to be the day you're flying. It's often a day 2 or 3 after. Then always see a medical professional and have that checked out because it's really common, especially on those longer flights.
You notice you get like your rings get tight and all that. That's what's happening in your whole body. I always see the water bottles like shrivel up. Like I always think of my insides. I'm like, oh, I wonder what this whole compression thing is doing with that, the change in pressure. So sorry, off the topic there, but
there you go. So I think we have touched on some key things. Does anybody have any other questions that they wanted to ask, or anybody have any other tricks that they use for when they're flying to stay healthy and happy and enjoy whatever vacation or business travel that they're doing?
Michelle's going to Turkey.
That is going to be awesome. Yes, but that's a long flight, so compression socks. And Michelle talked to me about what I use for my immune booster, and we'll get you set up.
If you guys have any other questions on tonight's topic, but thank you to the people who are sending feedback and asking for topics. We've got them lined up, and we're seeing overlap, and we're seeing some consistency of requests. So we're excited to bring those shows. We've been missing this, so the next few weeks we're going to have some really cool topics.
Yes, exactly. So keep it coming. Please share if there's anybody that you think might be interested in this topic or future topics. Please feel free to share our little Facebook Live video, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much, everybody,
have a wonderful
for showing
week,
up.
guys. Thank you.
And safe travels.
Safe travels.